This building is around 14 acres. It's 166,000 square meters, got around 6,200 rooms, 400 inpatient beds with parent accommodation, but also it's got a huge fleet of intensive care beds, 60, but also 6 MRI scanners, more CT scanners, and children and adolescents up to the age of 20 are going to be treated here. So we're going to increase our floor plate from 19 beds up to 28 beds to accommodate the adolescent young adults, or the adolescents specifically. So it's a huge development, and this is is the best children's and adolescent facility in the European Union.
So hi Owen, thanks a million for coming here today. I suppose we both know that it's Childhood Cancer Awareness Month this September. And I know there's been lots of advances within childhood cancer, and there's obviously still challenges that are presented within the area. So I suppose if you just want to tell me about the work that you're doing within the field of childhood cancer.
Yeah, so, I'm a haematologist, and I treat children and adolescents with hematological cancers or blood cancers like leukemias and lymphomas, and I used to work in the area of stem cell transplantation as well. And more recently I've sort of cut back a little bit and allowed the younger haematologists, who are far brighter than me, to take over this, and they're doing this now in CHI in Crumlin, but also where we're at today, also haematologists and oncologists in St. James's Hospital as well, because I suppose you realise we're building a brand new children's hospital on this campus, and it's going to accommodate all childhood and adolescent cancers in the one building that's going to be completed probably around April, May of 2025. So in relation to childhood cancers, as you know, probably around 200 children and young adolescents up to the age of 16 are diagnosed in Ireland every year. The majority of those are blood cancers, lymphomas and leukemias, and then comes brain tumours, etc. And as we speak today, the overall survival rates for those children and young adolescents is around 88%. So in other words, 88% of those children and young adults will be alive in 5 years after their treatment, which is a remarkable story. And the adolescents are even doing better, up to 90%. But that sort of success comes with a cost, and that cost are toxicities that survivors develop going forward. And coming to what we are doing in research, Avril, is that we're trying to understand what drives the cancer a bit more. And the only way we can do that is to develop new tools, and those new tools are now available, and they're called genetic sequencing, and the interpretation of that genetic sequencing, to look at the cancer itself, which we call somatic cancer genomics or genetics, but also to look at what's driving what I call the cost, the toxicities. That's called germline genomics. So going forward, I think it's going to be a fantastic, bright period for us in terms of understanding the cancer, but also understanding the patient who has the cancer, and we can get more cured with less toxicity.
Yeah, I think there's been massive advancements, and you probably can see that yourself from when you started out within cancer research to where it's come today. And that's obviously evident in the new hospital that's been built as well. I think that's fantastic news for everyone. And I suppose there's still probably challenges there as well for researchers and those who work in the hospital.
Yeah, so those challenges, as I was saying, are how do we actually get down to the basic biology of the cancers. And we're doing that now using this thing called next generation sequencing. So going back, the Human Genome Project was completed in 2003. It took 13 years, 5 different continents at a cost of $3 billion. And that was just to sequence one genome. We can now sequence your genome, or my genome, for around €800. So the technology has really advanced very fast, And now we need to know how to use that technology. And you've heard of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Well, these new tools are going to teach us how to actually interpret a lot of this data, because it's research today or tomorrow's cures. And that's what we're trying to do, is to unravel the complexity of the cancer and also the toxicity of the treatments that were used to treat these cancers, to get more patients, as I say, cured with less toxicities.
Just when you mentioned somatics, would you like to explain more what that means?
Yeah, I probably should have explained that much better. So when I talk about somatic mutations, so mutations drive cancer, these are mutations within the cancer cell. They're not mutations in, say, your eye cells or your liver cells, okay? These are just purely around the cancer, whereas mutations in your genome, or your germline, I should say, your germline, come from your mum and dad. That's who you are, your germline, okay? So they're important for us as well, because we know that 1 in 6 to 1 in 7 individuals who develop a cancer have something lurking in their germline. So they got inherited cancers. And we see that in a condition called Lynch syndrome or Li-Fraumeni syndrome. So they're important to pick up, because it's not just because they've caused the cancer in the somatic cell, but going forward after treatment, they may be more susceptible to developing secondary cancers. So somatic usually just means to the cancer cell itself, which is really separate to you as an individual, whereas your germline is everything that you are, and that may cause cancer in the somatic cell. So it's, it is somatic versus germline.
Yeah, I think that it's just phenomenal, the amount of change that has come, especially I think a lot of it is due to the technology that has, come in. Mm-hmm. And I suppose I am a survivor myself. Mm-hmm. You would have had me when I was a little child back in the day, when I was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 5. Yeah. I probably said about 2 words to you at the time. I was very quiet, just clung on to my dad the whole time, I think. But even just to come out the other side of it, at the time, I was a kid, so I just got on with it, And it's now when I come back, I've ended up coming back into this area of research, because it's part of my life. Sure. Since I was 5, so it's obviously going to be there, and there had that interest has always been there, the curiosity to see, what was it that I had.
Which is fantastic, because more and more people who are survivors want to come back and give, and also inform the treaters, the nurses, the doctors, the psychologists, what it was like on the other side of the fence. And this is really important to us. It's really important to us in developing new protocols, new trials that we, until quite recently, didn't allow that voice to be in the room, but now it's imperative that that voice is in the room. So nothing, we shouldn't be developing these therapies or research programs without the voice of people who are going through or who have gone through treatment as well. So when you came to us in Children's in Crumlin, we had a trial for acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which was your cancer type, which is the commonest cancer in children. And we had opened up what we call the UCAL in Ireland 2003 protocol, which to this date is still the best protocol, I believe, that we've done across the European Union or even in North America. And it was specifically asking the question, can we cure more of children with less toxicity? Exactly what I was talking about. So what became available to us then was what we call an assay or a test in the laboratory, that we could look at the amount of leukemia after 28 days of treatment, after 11 weeks of treatment. And that allowed us to either reduce the amount of treatment or increase the amount of treatment. So what happened when that particular clinical trial finished was we found that we could cut out a lot of treatment for those children who were what we call good actors, who responded really well. And then for those children who would normally have relapsed, by increasing the dose of treatment or the intensity of treatment, more and more of those children were alive. So the curve went right up from the previous trial. So that was a fantastic trial, and that's another tool that we have, not just the genomics and all of that really high-flying sort of technologies, but also clinical trials, asking the basic question, is A better than B? And can we drop some of the treatment? Because if you look back where this particular disease, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, was cured, was back in the 1960s in originally started in Boston, but it went down to St. Jude's Clinical Research Center in Memphis, Tennessee, when a chap called Don Pinkel asked these specific questions. And he was the first to cure around 50% of children. And I've met some of those. Now they're adults. A lot of them have had their own children and moved on and whatever. But clinical trials in this space is really, really important. It's no good, you know, me turning up on a Tuesday saying to everybody, I know how to cure leukemia. It has to be within a clinical trial program developed across a number of groups. And because we're so small in pediatrics and adolescents, 200 per year in Ireland, around 180 adolescent young adults between 16 and 25 years of age, we have to put these into an international context to ask questions. So as we're going forward, we're introducing more and more novel therapies, new treatments that wouldn't have been available to you at that stage. And these are treatments like targeted treatments or immunotherapies. So the future, as they say, in quotes, is looking orange. It's looking fantastic for a lot of children, adolescent, young adults now who develop cancer.
Yeah, I was at a conference on just last Saturday, the Child, Adolescent and Young Adults Conference in Crow Park. And just going home from that, I really, was emphasised that it's very bright future looking ahead. I know you still have to be conscious that there is that percentage of children who unfortunately don't make it through. And I think it's really important to remember those families that don't make it the whole way through, and the devastation obviously that leaves behind. But just even in terms of the treatments, how much they've improved over the last few years, and just looking at the family as a whole rather than just the child and the parents. There's the siblings, there's the grandparents, cousins, it goes right back to the primary school then as well. Just to get them all involved. Yeah,
it's the totality of treatment, it's the totality of what we do for not just the patients, the children, but also their family, communities and further afield. My story started in 1966 when my first cousin, Derek Reid, was diagnosed with acute leukemia, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and was brought into Temple Street Children's Hospital. And then there was no real treatment in this country for acute leukemia, and like all other children his age, he was dead within 3 weeks. So that's how this particular disease can kill you very, very fast. And if you don't have any treatment, you die from this. And then, as I was saying, in the late 1960s, early 70s, we started to come to terms with a lot of this by creating new novel drugs and whatever, and moving that on. So that sort of etched itself or burned itself into my brain about Derek and about how futile it was then. And you look now, and 85, 90% are cured. And what has always come back to me is, I always remember the children, adolescents I don't cure, or we don't cure, and the ones who are cured like you, I tend to forget about. But I probably shouldn't do. But my focus is to cure that 10 to 5% that we don't cure going forward. But also, you raise an incredibly important point that in pediatrics and adolescent medicine, we just don't treat the patient with the cancer. We treat the siblings, we treat the parents, the grandparents. Now, they're not always very nice to us when we're treating. The vast majority are. Incredibly stressful time. And that's why we need all these other supports. Because, you will probably remember, your mum and dad will definitely remember, it's not just doctors and nurses treating cancer in children. You've got this cadre of people like social workers, psychologists, you've got play therapists, all of this other stuff that's really important to the psychosocial well-being. And places like Barrettstown, I'm sure you've been to Barrettstown, fantastic place for recreation for the family going forward. And then if you look at the other cancers, I don't want to hog this just for the leukemias, but if you look at the lymphomas, they're up there in the 90-95% ranges. Hodgkin lymphoma, 95% are cured. Non-Hodgkin lymphoma, 92%. And then a lot of the solid tumours as well. There are some ones like some refractory leukemias that are difficult to treat, and some of the higher stage neuroblastomas are difficult to treat, and some of the brain tumours are difficult to treat. Again, the same concept that if we are to move forward and cure more of those, we need to understand the biology, not just of the tumour, but the biology of the person who's holding that tumour, and get that information, turn that information into knowledge, and move on and cure more.
Yeah, I suppose my own research is focusing in on that survivorship piece, seeing that there is so much high rates of survival, that I'm going to focus in on that survivorship piece and how we can make that transition from treatment back to normal life, if you want to call it, even though life's never going to be the same as it was before the cancer came into the family. But what I'm going to do is try focus in on that, that period initially when you finish treatment, within the next few months, how do we make that as stress-free as we can, both for the parents, the children, and the wider circle around them, because it can be, obviously it's brilliant news, you've been cured, lots of positive emotions, but there is also that worry in the back of the head, could it come back, how's the transition back to school, back to work, how's that all going to go, and I think well-being and quality of life is really important in that area. And then the support as well, that needs to be, because obviously when you're on active treatment, you have loads and loads of support from everyone in the hospital, even at home, everyone around you, there's massive support there. But once you finish treatment, there seems to be, over time, just by looking at the research, it does start to diminish over time. So I think probably more work needs to be done, that it is identified in the research that there is a gap there on those initial few months and then years down the road.
Sure. So as you say, that transition out of childhood cure into adolescence survivorship, and then further on into adult survivorship as well. There are things we're addressing at the moment here in the Trinity St. James's Cancer Institute, because this whole area of survivorship has really become very prominent. And as you know, toxicities, the longer you're out from a cancer and you've had treatment, the greater the chance you will get a chronic toxicity, more so than, say, somebody who hasn't gone through cancer treatment. And we need to be smart about that. We need to be able to find out what toxicities are going to develop in certain people and not in other people, and then to cut them off at the pass. This is really an area, survivorship medicine now is just beginning to mushroom up, and we're investing a lot in that, and we're developing what we call the Trinity St. James's Cancer Institute Survivorship Research Hub. And as I was saying earlier on, there's a lot of these new treatments coming through, the immunotherapies, who are changing the landscape of cancer cures now, much more so. And we want to know, do they have any long-term toxicities as well? It's great curing the cancer with these treatments that are less toxic than chemotherapy, but what are the long-term side effects of these? Are there any long-term side effects? And if there are, what are they? Can we pick them up early and then intervene? So, cure really becomes cure, not just from your primary cancer, but from any of these toxicities. So we really need to redefine cure. And it's going to be great having you as part of the team in CHI working with us in the ALL program. I know you're going to be working with Peter McCarthy and Cheryl Alkin and Charlotte O'Sullivan. So it's great to have you come back. And we've had other individuals who have come through, as you know, Karen O'Neill, who I've got great hopes for in terms of survivorship cancer medicine, because she's come through with AML. And so, we're part of a bigger family here. And, you're not, once you finish your treatment, we're not letting you go, as it were. You can go whichever way you want, but we're always there as a parachute or a net to be there for you when there are issues arising.
Yeah, no, I really seen that was emphasised at the conference at the weekend. I know Dr. Chiara Bassani and Dr. Helen Greeley were speaking about the new model of care that's just recently been launched. And that whole survivorship piece was massive. It was highlighted over and over again. And that's, it's great to see that it's been brought on and, it is highlighted, and having that patient's voice as well. They were really willing. We had a workshop after their talks. And again, during that workshop, there was plenty of cancer survivors there as well. And they were taking on board what they were saying. It wasn't just, coming to a closed ear or anything, they were taking it on board, and they were writing down notes and stuff like that. So it's great to get that patient's voice and the family within it as well, because obviously yourself and Dr. Chiara all have these expertise and everything, but it's nice to get the patient's voice on top of that as well. So I feel like I'm kind of getting both sides of that, being a survivor and a researcher myself. Obviously I'm only an early career researcher, so I have lots and lots to learn. But I think even if I can bring in a small bit just to say that I've helped in some way to cancer research, that'll be...
It's really, really important that you are there, and it's great that you are there. Because we're beginning to, to tread new grounds as well. I mean, as you know, the last cancer strategy, the 2070, which was the third cancer strategy in the country, was the first strategy to recognise adolescent young adults as a unique cancer community. And then on the back of that, I got involved with the National Cancer Control Programme as the national clinical lead for children, adolescent, young adults, and now we have a framework document. We've done the model of care for psycho-oncology with Helen and Chiara. We've done a genomics piece on inherited cancer predisposition. One in 6, maybe 1 in 7 of our cancer children, adolescent, young adults have got a genetic predisposition. We need to know who they are for follow-up, but also for their family, and again with people from here, CHI, and also St. James's Trinity Cancer Institute, Professor Maeve Lowry and Dr. Karen Cadu. We've developed a model of care for that genomics piece as well, and as you saw probably last month, the National Cancer Registry Ireland produced some fantastic data, not just on children that they would have done before, but now they've recognised we need to look at the demographic and the diagnosis and the survival rates for the 16 to 25 year olds. So if we were having this conversation 10 years ago, it was all about children, it was all about adults, and as I call them, the people from Middle Earth, the adolescent young adults, the guys that give you a lot of stick, they were forgotten about, but they're no longer forgotten about. And they're built into this whole new program through the NCCP, National Cancer Control Program, that we have, as you say, that transition period. Transition from survival in children, transition from survival adolescents through to adults. We have to follow these patients comprehensively going forward, because we know we can cure the vast majority of them, but we need to be able to intervene with any of the toxicities. So redefining what cure is in this population. And we're in a very good position now, as I say, with the new technologies of genomic sequencing and AI and machine learning and all of that.
Yeah, I think just the support is so massive throughout the whole cancer journey and then into survivorship. Like if you don't have the support from day one, and then it has to continue throughout as well. I just, even when you're speaking about adolescents and young adults having cancer, however bad it must be for a child, I can't imagine what it must be like having cancer as a teenager or young adult, because there's so much going on in your life anyways at that age group. And then to have, on top of that, a cancer diagnosis, it must be extremely difficult to navigate your way around that.
15 or 16, I remember going to a dance. They used to call them dances then. This is pre-discos. And I used to go to a dance, and I remember I was a big Deep Purple fan. They were a band in the 70s, Deep Purple. And I remember I developed a zit on, and before going out to dance, I just refused to go out to dance because everybody was going to be looking at my zit. So adolescents, they develop, they have other insecurities, and then when you land a diagnosis of cancer on that, their world goes splat, and it's huge, and we just need proper support around that when these things happen, because a lot of people until quite recently, like adolescent medicine is a fairly new type of medicine, and there was, pediatrics and adults and this thing in between Middle Earth, as I was saying earlier on, people weren't really interested in that in big numbers, but now there's more and more people getting interested in adolescent, young adult diabetes, gastro problems, gut problems, but cancer as well. And cancer has really led the way because of the impact of having a cancer diagnosis. It just uncouples or cripples the family, basically. Whereas with a younger child, everything is handled by the parents, really. Whereas with the adult, it's always handled by the adult. But with an adolescent, they're in transition between childhood and adulthood. It's a very difficult period, and we are addressing that now through the National Cancer Control Programme and hospitals like Cork, Galway and St James's, as we are sitting in today, with Children's Health Ireland at the hub of the whole programme.
Yeah, because I can't really imagine it being a teenager now with a diagnosis of cancer. It's just hard to believe, because I know when I was a child at the time, I used to take it on my chin. I kind of shun up to it, to be honest, myself. My friend Louise actually was a diabetic as well.
Right.
And when we were in primary school, we used to get our special chairs in the classroom, so we loved that. And I had my bubblegum hat on, because obviously the hair would be gone, so I used to love that. And things like Barrettstown was massive. I have really, really good memories of Barrettstown. I don't have much memories of the treatment side of things. I'd say my brain just blocked them parts out. But the happier side then of Barrettstown, the Bubblegum Club, they bring great memories back to me. Going there with my cousins and stuff was always a great trip and day out.
So I'm sure when you were an inpatient in Crumlin, when I come around and do rounds, your head would go under the pillow. Not him again, not him again. Yeah, exactly. And it's great that that whole thing in Barrettstown happens, and you can get out and just relive and reboot, recharge you and your family and your siblings. It's so important. And I've always said, we've 5 pillars of cancer treatment: surgery, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, targeted therapy. But the 5th pillar is something, immunotherapy. The 6th pillar is really things like Barrettstown. This is proper comprehensive cancer treatment. It's not just all this lovely technologies and drugs and whatever. It's the psychosocial side of things. It's very difficult to deliver that in an acute setting in the hospital. You have to take the patient or the child or the adolescent away and put them in a different environment where they can get back to being who they are.
Yeah, that was definitely the standout memory for me. And looking through pictures and stuff, I could remember it, whereas more so when I was in the hospital, I don't have too many memories of it. But even in saying that, when I met with Dr. Chiara and the team back in Crumlin, I remember when I was walking down the hallway with all the jerseys on the wall, coming down, straight away I remembered that. I remember looking out for the Laois jersey, because that's where I'm from, and it was the exact same one that was there. So it's funny that the memories are starting to pop up, and then maybe as I go into my research more, different things will start to prop up as well, and things like the Freddy bag as well. Absolutely. My mum obviously kept all of those things up in the attic, and she's bringing them down now as I'm getting more into my research. And you start to remember different things like that then when they're brought up again.
Yeah, no, and it'll never leave you. It'll always be there, and it's to come to terms with. It was a difficult, very difficult time, but look at you now. You're moving on. You're a researcher. You're giving back to the whole thing, and you're adding to the richness of what we're trying to do going forward. So tomorrow is always better than yesterday. Always think about it like that. So that's why I've no intentions of retiring over the next 5 years, because, as I was saying, the future looks so bright at the moment, and if we can get this totally right for children, adolescent, young adults with cancer in this country, I think we can lead the way in the European Union and indeed in North America, getting things right here, because we can do it. And to be fair, Minister Donnelly has been very supportive of especially the psycho-oncological side of cancer treatment. And as you say, if you have got good well-being, we know this from studies in North America and Europe, going through your cancer journey and beyond your cancer journey, you do better, your outcomes are better. And it's not we're giving you new drugs or whatever. So there is this interaction between psychosocial well-being and cancer outcomes. So it's very important for us to get that right from the beginning for everybody. And also you see that with retention of staff within the cancer program, because 25 years ago when more than 25 years ago, 35 years ago when I worked in London at Great Ormsby Children's Hospital, a lot of the staff, especially the nursing staff, there was a great turnover of staff. Some of the nurses would leave because, then the cure rates weren't as good and there was a huge impact on staff. But now, because the cure rates are so good and we're addressing the other side of the cancer, psychosocial well-being, we're seeing more and more people wanting to stay within the program. And we're a big family, and we want parents and children and adolescents to be part of that family. And it's not just when you finish your treatment you're finished with us. In the past it was somewhat like that, but now, because of survivorship and because of we want to be your friends, we want to be part of that family going forward into the survivorship era. And that's the area that we're going to really start concentrating on now, is really defining better survivorship programs, anticipating issues that may arise for certain individuals and then intervening and stopping things, chronicity from happening. You said it very beautifully there. You were in school with a colleague or a friend who had diabetes and you had cancer. Now if you were to ask somebody at that stage, what's the difference? They'd say, well, diabetes is a chronic disease and whatever. I would say cancer is a chronic disease now, because you cure it, but then you go on with some of the side effects of the cancer, and then like diabetes we can control those side effects. And so you're never finished after you've stopped treatment for cancer. We just need to continuously survey you or survivors of cancer. So the future looks great.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And even just from talking to different people within the field of psycho-oncology, everyone's so enthusiastic. It really rubs off on everyone, I think. That there's always something else that needs to be researched, something else that needs to be done. And I think if there's that drive behind everyone, it's only going to lead to better outcomes. And then when you think of the families as well who have had cancer or do have cancer, they're extremely resilient. The resilience just comes straight through. And that's kind of one of the factors that I'm going to be really focusing in on for my own research, because I'm coming from a psychology background. So I'm interested in that kind of aspects as well. So resilience is definitely a big one, because I think all cancer families are just extremely resilient people. And then that social support aspect, like anything in life you need support behind you, even for my own research I have an amazing team of supervisors behind me, and Dr. Simon Dunn, Professor Veronica Lambert and Professor Pamela Gallagher, then yourself and Dr. Chiara and the whole team in CHI behind me. Obviously I wouldn't be able to do the research myself, so you need the support. And it's the same then when it comes to cancer care and treatment and survivorship. You need that support network behind you. So that's another aspect that I'm going to be looking at. And then that quality of life is so important, because you need good well-being.
Fantastic. And then just you mentioned Veronica there. I work closely with Veronica in the academic health science system here in Children's Hospital. It's an important point, because you're going to be doing your thesis through DCU, Dublin City University, and CHI, Children's Health Ireland, are affiliated with the 4 Dublin-based universities at the moment. We want to expand that out to Cork, Galway, Limerick, Belfast, Queen's, and also Ulster University. But it's important that all of the universities are involved. It's not like we just need one university like a lot of the hospital groups. So CHI is unique in that we've got what we call a memorandum of agreement in terms of academic pursuits with DCU, with Trinity, with UCD and RCSI. And Veronica is part of that programme. So it's great to see all of the universities, because this is where the research comes from. And as I keep saying, research today is cures tomorrow, and we need more and more universities involved. So bright people like you can show us the way in terms of what we should be doing in terms of all of the stuff we've discussed. Yeah,
and I think support then from different organisations such as Breakthrough Cancer Research and the Irish Research Council. Because I know I'm funded by Breakthrough Cancer Research and the Irish Research Council under the Enterprise Partnership Scheme, that there needs to be that kind of financial backing as well to be able to go and do, this research.
Yeah, it's absolutely right, and it's absolutely fantastic. Because ultimately, you put in money, you put in funding for this. what ends up at the end of the day, you get better outcomes, you get better treatment outcomes, but also the stuff begins to become less expensive in totality for society. You know, it's quality of years, it's quality of life, it's all of that stuff. More people are retained within the workforce, etc., as survivors. And so it's money well spent by these different charities and whatever, different non-governmental organisations. But also SFI, HRB, Department of Health, etc., need to put more and more money in, and that's why we keep banging this drum all the time. We need more and more money, and it's not for us, it's for the future. We need to make the future much brighter for this population of individuals, patients.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you see how the money is being used and where it's going to, you know, it's obvious that it's needed, and if we can get that survivorship rates up and up the whole time, not just in children cancer but across the board, and adolescent cancer all the way up to adult cancer. You know, there's still people dying from cancer at the end of the day as well. We can't forget that. Like, my own family has been touched by that as well, and the devastation that it leaves behind is just, it's, you know, there's no words that can describe it. So I think all these campaigns that just raise awareness of cancer research, that, you know, we need to be supporting these people and researchers. And
it's great to see a cancer month dedicated to children, because usually it was a day years ago, it was a week, and now it's a month, and it needs to be kept on the agenda more and more. And across the European Union, we're having a meeting this week actually. I can't attend, but it's in Essen in Germany, and it's all of the adolescent, young adult cancer programs are going to come together within this. So there's a huge volume of people now wanting to train not just in children's cancer, but adolescent young adults, because they are different. And here we've appointed specific people like Niamh O'Sullivan as the Assistant Director of Adolescent Young Adult Cancer Nursing, that's based between CHI and St James's. Peter McCarthy, he's an adolescent young adult haematologist like me that treats blood cancers, and then Cheryl Alkin, who's a medical oncologist specifically in AYA. So the penny has dropped, the light bulb is on. We are addressing the issues for this particular population. So I tend not to see paediatrics in isolation, in a silo. I see paediatrics as adolescents and into young adulthood, because I can't remember not being an adolescent. You know, it wasn't like one day I woke up and I became an adolescent, or I became a young adult. So I can't remember that, and it's different for different people, as you know. You know, if you were to see me at 20 to 5 on a Saturday afternoon, looking at the television for the results of football matches, I'm a complete adolescent, right? I'm screaming at the television because my football club, Everton, every week are losing, and I'm losing more hair, I'm becoming more grey, and it's so stressful. I'm an adolescent then, you know. So we all still can dip back in and dip back out, and it's a precious time for that particular group of patients, because they remember a lot. When you were 5, I'm sure you remembered lots of things, but if you were 15 when this was happening to you, Avril, you would remember a lot more. We just need to make that experience really much more.
Yeah, I think if you're 15, 16, obviously you're involved in different sports then as well, and you'd obviously, if you're on the treatment, you'll have to come out of the sports. And I know I'm big into sports myself. Athletics is kind of my thing, and if I was told I had to come out for treatment, I'd find that really, really difficult, because that's, you know, kind of part of your identity. So you're losing that aspect, and then you're being pushed out of college or school, whatever you're in, for the treatment, and then trying to get back in with social relationships are so big at that age as well.
You can imagine if you're an 18-year-old and you're a rugby player and you're playing for the Leinster Academy, and that's a contact sport, and as you know, through treatment your platelets go down, and you tell an 18-year-old alpha male that they cannot go into contact, there's a big issue there, you know.
Yeah, so just thanks a million, Owen, for coming here today, for treating me when I was younger as well, and for being part of my research team now as well with my research going forward. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
It's been fantastic to see you as a grown-up, as a beautiful woman, and I'd just like you to say hello to your mum and dad. I haven't seen them in a while, and your sibling, and it's going to be fantastic working with you going forward, and putting a different edge on the research that we need to get on with. Thank you.